Roundtable guest this week, Jim Bauer, Bauer Trading. We have Ryan Doherty from Stuart Peterson. Gentlemen, we had a government report come out on Monday, and that report was, I'm going to say at this point in time it was mixed, but it was a surprise. Jim, what did you find as a surprise on Monday?
Well, I think the market has looked at these numbers from various analysts and analytical firms so much, we're almost tired of all the data coming in. What we're looking at now is how we finish out this crop. We have customer base in Iowa, Illinois, parts of the Dakotas, and Minnesota that started out pretty good. Even 3 or 4 weeks ago, we're in pretty good shape, but it hasn't rained since. And I was talking to one of my very best customers just east of Des Moines, and he feels right now they're losing about 2% per day on the bean crop from a yield standpoint, and maybe 1 to 2% on the corn because no rain, and now the temperatures are going to start accelerating. If they can get some decent rains in those areas, it would really be beneficial, but it's kind of odd to be talking a weather market in late August, early September. But from a dryness standpoint in those key areas, it is an issue.
Ryan, your comments.
Well, the report had a bit of a friendly surprise on the yield estimate from the USDA, so
Yeah.
the market reacted to that for a day. I think the bigger overriding picture, though, is we're kind of at a critical zone for price for producers, especially those who haven't had, let's say, the fortune to sell a lot of corn early on, yet they've got a pretty good-looking crop right now. So I think that the big thing out of this week, a lot of volatility. The market may be telling us it's trying to put a low. It's worried about potential frost, cold weather, those kind of things. That we take this USDA report and probably look at it and say, hey, we're not going to probably look at any major production surprises, at least upward from here. It could creep higher, but ultimately producers need to be prepared for corn to move down another 75 cents or take off and just run if this cold weather becomes a concern. And so what I got out of this report, I think what producers did is there's confusion, but you got to stick with strategy. If you're light on sales, sell into these rallies, buy calls to cover those sales. If you are heavy on sales, get some out of the money calls as safety valves in case this freeze concern grows.
2 days after the report, the government come out and they talked about prevented planted. Were either one of you surprised at those numbers?
Well, 7.7 million acres is not something to sneeze at.
That's right.
And of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the final answer. The way they tabulate that, from what I know, is that it's basically a survey, but it covers only those farmers that are covered by crop insurance. So there is still a question mark, particularly in those states I mentioned earlier about what was going on: Iowa, Minnesota, the Dakotas, parts of Wisconsin. There's still going to be somewhat of a question. It may not even be answered up through October about what the final planted acreage is. So we combine a question mark on planted acreage and a little bit more of a question on yield compared to what we were at, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago because of the dryness situation. There's going to be some adjustment in this crop situation. As far as pricing, I think there's some things out ahead that we're still going to have to watch, including the frost scare. Keep in mind that we're still paralleling 1974 to some degree, and the number of above freezing days this summer in the polar regions were only half of what they normally are, which indicates a rhythm, what they call a rhythm in meteorology, or a pattern. So we're really going to have to watch what's going on. And again, some of the forecasters are calling for a frost as early as August 29th through August 30th in the Canadian prairies, which is pretty close to our border, obviously, and could be a threat. Now, if that happens, that's a big problem. Am I going to forecast a frost this early? No, but I certainly have my staff and every one of our customers that we possibly can be in a position to take advantage of it if we can see it coming.
Advantage, you need to take advantage. We're talking about taking advantage, you're really talking about protection at this point in time, or planning for this crop, right?
Well, here's and I'm going to agree with Jim, as far as being prepared, planning, whatever we want to call it. If I'm a dairy producer in Wisconsin and we happen to get hit with an early frost and all of a sudden corn goes from, let's say, $4.50 on the board to $6 or $6.50, I can't afford to be surprised by that. This is not the time for complacency. It's called, managing your risk and taking advantage of your opportunities. Again, I'm going to agree with Jim from the sense that there is a lot of crop, and especially in my home state that I got in very late. It's been cool at nights. There's a growing concern that, frost is always out there, but when you look at some of these Arctic maps and temperature maps and some of these real scientific evidences that are starting to surface, it's something that producers and or end users should plan for. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But planning is the key. Not being surprised is no way to run a business.
Whatever the business may be.
Whatever
right?
the business may be, producer, end user, whoever, pay attention.
Okay, gentlemen. Whatever it is.
I can't count the number of times I've been surprised. So.
And not always,
And not always-
pleasantly. We'll be back with more U.S. Farm Report in just a moment.
Learn more about cover crops at AgWeb's new Undercover section, sponsored by Cover Crop Solutions, home of the tillage radish. Visit agweb.com/undercover.